How about the Cincinnati Bengals, who did a midnight dump of the announcement that they're going to be bringing back both of their star receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. This was announced, I believe, Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports was the first one to have this. I believe they went straight through him. T. Higgins, 4 years, $115 million. Jamar Chase, 4 years, $161 million. That is the most money all time for a non-quarterback, as promised by the Bengals, going in Jamar Chase's favor. It's also the most money any team has ever committed to two wide receivers at the same time. They are outpacing the rest of the league when it comes to the money spent on offense in a major way. They are outpacing other wide receiver tandems by $10+ million, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And all of this for a team that failed to make the playoffs last year and for a team that struggled mostly on the defensive side of the ball. Cincinnati is not wrong for extending Jamar and T. Higgins. In fact, I believe this is the right move. The problem that Cincy fell into this offseason is they waited a little too late. And this is one of those classic right moves, wrong time. Too little, too late. When you have to pay a guy in Jamar Chase $41 million a year, and Justin Jefferson, who I know Jamar just came off the Triple Crown, C-Cat. It's one of the greatest single wide receiver seasons of all time. Only 5 people in the history of the league have actually won a Triple Crown. Jamar is one of them.
And now there's more competition for it.
It is.
The pass obviously has increased the past 20 years.
It absolutely is. But the other side of that context is you could have extended Jamar Chase last year this time, and at that point, his market value would have been probably hovering around $33, $34 million a year. So because you waited a whole season, not only are you paying a spike because of the other contracts that have happened between Myles Garrett and Max Crosby around the league for non-quarterbacks, you're also paying a premium because you allowed that guy who we all knew. We all looked at each other and said, yeah, there ain't 2 or 3 dudes better than that guy at the wide receiver position. He is the engine of this offense. We cannot win games. We cannot make playoff runs without Jamar Chase, without number 1 on our squad. We all kind of agreed that. The Bengals did as well, but they had these antiquated rules that prevented them from signing him to that deal early. They waited a year. Jamar proved exactly what we knew would happen, and now they're paying the cost for it. I know you had the salary cap hike. I know the Bengals are going to be able to retain their stars and have a happier locker room, C-Cat, but the more I look at this from a wider scope, like, this moves the needle for me, like, very little. Very little when it comes to the Bengals actually being able to now be a playoff team next year as opposed to what they did last season, because they got no better. All they did was get more expensive.
Yeah.
They just got more expensive with the same unit, and a guy like T. Higgins who deserves that bag, a guy like Jamar Chase who deserves that bag, are now I looked at the 3 contracts. Higgins, Chase, and Burrow. Like, those 3 guys making like what, around $130 million per year just between the 3 of them in a salary cap sport. It's going to get really rough, and now they're still trying to find money to re-sign Trey Hendrickson. Like, are the Bengals a serious franchise, or are they just now just trying to put enough talent on the field to keep their fans happy?
As someone who started watching football for the first time this year could tell you, okay, the Bengals' offense is good.
Really good.
Their defense is bad, and that's very first grade, kindergarten math, right? It's very simple cause and effect. So by doing this, like you said, they stay the same. The offense stays close to the same, but they have less resources to improve that defense. And the formula that you got from the Bengals was not a playoff team. And the division didn't get any easier going into 2025, so it's reasonable to assume that they're not going to be a playoff team next year because they cannot address the defense nearly as much as they would have been able to if they let T. Higgins walk. Or if, like you said, had the foresight, sign him a little bit earlier.
Sign Higgins earlier.
You said this is the right move now. You
had
did
to
it
do
at the wrong time.
Yes.
I don't think you had to. I don't think you had to sign T. Higgins now. I think that you cut your losses.
Yeah.
It's like compounding your errors. It's like, okay, best case scenario, we sign him early, get a deal.
Here's the issue, C-Cat. This is why the Bengals backed themselves into a corner. And it's hilarious because I see Bengals fans tweeting out relief that their franchise finally stopped being cheap. I saw people sending out thank you letters publicly to the ownership there. Please, Bengals fans, stand the hell up. Y'all look so pathetic to me. The bar is so low in Cincinnati that them doing a move that is like common sense, but also doing it a year too late and making it more expensive and further capping you in a way that's going to hurt your ability to actually win football games because of salary cap sport. Bengals fans need to stand up and actually hold this ownership and the decision makers to the fire, because this is not a savvy move. This is actually the opposite of it. It's closer to what the Cowboys have been doing year after year, and you see where that's gotten that franchise. And on the other side of that, you're saying they could have traded T. Higgins. You know why they couldn't do that? I didn't realize this until about a week ago, and I'm not sure why this wasn't a bigger headline. The reason why Higgins and Chase's deal got announced at the same time, they were a package deal. They were a package deal. And you're not letting Chase walk out of that building. They both were on the last year of their contracts, technically, and they have the same agent, and the Bengals had no choice. Because they told us publicly that Chase was going to be the highest paid non-quarterback, they had to pay him now $6 million more than a man in Justin Jefferson, who we can all agree he's not better than. He just isn't. And because T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are locked in, and Joe Burrow is also angling for these guys to get their contracts extended, they couldn't extend Chase without also coming to an agreement with T. Higgins, and now he's getting paid the most of any wide receiver two in the NFL right now. This is just mismanagement by that Bengals organization, and they're somehow getting applause from their fans for doing not only the common sense move, but then doing it in a way that was too late and is going to cost them. This still might not be a playoff team next year, C-Cat. Nobody would be shocked if they missed the postseason again.
But yeah, now I go back to a general manager's decision to now put his career on the line, rather than, after paying Joe Burrow record money for that organization, saying, okay, we're seeing other quarterbacks in the NFL do a lot more with a lot less on the offensive side. Let's address the other side of the football and really trust Joe Burrow. That's just an organizational, philosophical flaw that we're seeing shown on the brightest stage right now during this offseason, where the general manager could put the onus on the quarterback rather than construct a team. The onus is on the general manager because it was flawed last year. It'll be more flawed this year.
Well, number one, the problem is they don't really have a technical general manager. They have a guy assuming a position that is adjacent to that role. Number two, the Bengals, like if you're going to say not take away Joe Burrow's help, but help him in ways that are like sufficient in other areas of the roster, like defense and whatnot, where you can use it. That sounds good, but it feels like they got to a place where it was Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and maybe even Trey Hendrickson. We have to wait and see. It sounds like they're trying to extend him as well. It sounds like it's them versus management at this point, and Burrow already is locked in at that major $55 million a year deal. When he's out publicly telling us in the media, showing up on as many talk shows as possible to tell us how he can restructure his contract to make things work to keep everybody in-house, it feels like the GM, quote-unquote, of the Bengals was no longer just negotiating with those players, but they were negotiating against those players and against Joe Burrow and against the collective agencies.
But again, that goes back to, okay, let the players play and the managers manage, and the front office guys run the depth chart of the team. Again, it goes back to organizational, philosophical flaw that is just being developed and is snowballing to the worst extent, where we're going to have a short-term victory for the fan base and even for Joe Burrow, Chase, and Higgins.
Yeah.
And then the whistle will blow, the ball snapped, and the Bengals are 1-4.
Yeah. Like always. That's how the season always starts. And the funny thing is, so you're saying put the onus on the quarterback? I don't think they can. Because you look in the AFC, and he's the fourth best quarterback at best. And he's only the fourth best quarterback when you have Higgins and Chase on the roster, on the field, actively playing. Without one of those two, he might fall down further on that ladder. That's an issue. You can't say, hey, Joe, just carry us and we'll get rid of Higgins and help ourselves elsewhere and expect that thing to move the way it's been moving when there's no proof of concept in that direction. And for the Bengals, not only do you not have the number one quarterback or a top three quarterback in your own conference, even as I look at their wide receiver duo, that they've now made the richest wide receiver pairing in the history of the league. They're getting paid like $12 to $13 million more than any other tandem. Like, even if you can say that that's the best receiver duo in the league, which I don't think is definitive,